They didn't come for revenge, they didn't come for war, they came to say thank you, and that's what made it terrifying. The galaxy had always believed it understood power. For tens of thousands of cycles, the great civilizations of the Orion Arm measured strength in predictable ways: fleet tonnage, energy output, technological sophistication, genetic refinement. The Velkari Dominion controlled a third of known space through sheer military precision. The Sithri Collective outpaced all rivals in computational supremacy. The Elgin Ascendancy possessed knowledge so old it bordered on myth, and then there were humans. At first, they were nothing. Their world Earth sat on the outer edge of a relatively unremarkable system. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards, their physiology was inefficient, their lifespans short, their governments chaotic when they first reached interstellar capability. It wasn't through brilliance or elegance, it was through desperation. No one expected them to matter. No one expected them to remember, and no one, across the entire breadth of the galaxy, expected them to come back. It began with a debt nearly 2 centuries earlier, long before humanity had developed stable, faster-than-light travel. A catastrophic stellar event had nearly annihilated their system. A rogue neutron fragment, dense, fast, unstoppable, had been flung from a distant supernova, its trajectory intersecting directly with Earth's orbital plane. Humanity had detected it far too late. Panic spread across their world. Their scientists calculated the impact with brutal accuracy. The fragment would not strike Earth directly, but its passage would destabilize their star's outer layers, triggering solar flares powerful enough to strip their atmosphere. Extinction was not a possibility. It was a certainty. Their transmissions, primitive and desperate, leaked into the void. Mathematical pleas, raw data, fragmented signals repeating one simple concept in dozens of languages. Help us. For a long time, and no one answered. Until someone did. The Arkan Coalition was not the most powerful faction in the galaxy, nor the most advanced. They were, however, curious, and occasionally, though they would never admit it, compassionate. They received the human signal. Most within the coalition dismissed it. Intervening in pre-established extinction events violated multiple protocols, it wasted resources, it set dangerous precedents, but one Arkan observer disagreed. Commander Thalen was not particularly important in the hierarchy. She was not influential. She did not command fleets or shape policy. What she had was authority over a single exploration vessel and the stubborn inclination to act when others would not. She reviewed the human data, she watched their broadcasts, she saw their panic, and she made a decision that would echo across centuries, without authorization, without consensus, and fully aware of the consequences. Thalen diverted her ship. The Arkan vessel reached the Sol system hours before the neutron fragment's arrival. Its technology dwarfed anything humanity possessed. Using gravitational manipulation arrays, it altered the fragment's trajectory by a fraction of a degree. It was enough. The fragment passed harmlessly through the system. Its destructive potential dissipated into empty space. Earth survived. Humanity never fully understood what had happened. Their instruments recorded anomalies, impossible gravitational shifts, energy signatures they could not explain. Some suspected intervention, others dismissed it as luck. Only a few saw the Arkan ship. Only a few transmitted back. Thank you. Thalen did not respond. She couldn't. Her actions had already triggered disciplinary action within the coalition. By the time her ship returned, she was stripped of command. Her career ended. History moved on. Humanity survived. The galaxy forgot, but humans did not. For 2 centuries, humanity advanced. Slowly at first, then rapidly, they reverse-engineered fragments of data left behind by the Arkan intervention. They studied the anomalies, the impossible physics, the signatures of technology far beyond their own. What began as curiosity became obsession. They wanted to understand. More importantly, they wanted to repay. Human culture transformed in subtle ways. Stories spread, legends of unseen saviors, of a moment when extinction had been pushed aside by an unknown hand. Entire generations grew up with a single, unifying belief: we owe someone, and one day, we will find them. By the time humanity officially entered the galactic stage, they were no longer insignificant. They were still underestimated, but they were no longer weak. Their ships were unconventional. Their technology was unusual. They lacked the elegance of the Sithri or the precision of the Valkyrie. But they possessed something else, something difficult to quantify. Adaptability. And memory. First contact with the wider galaxy was uneventful. Humans were cataloged, studied, categorized as a mid-tier emerging species with potential but no immediate threat. They integrated slowly. They traded, they learned, and quietly, relentlessly, they searched. For decades, human explorers combed ancient records, cross-referenced anomalies, tracked gravitational signatures that matched the event that had saved them. Most species found this behavior odd but harmless. The Arkan Coalition, however, noticed. Because the humans were getting close. By the time the Coalition realized the extent of humanity's investigation, it was already too late. They had found Lynn. Or rather, they had found the record of her. Her name had been buried, her actions classified, her intervention officially erased. But humans had reconstructed it from fragments, tiny inconsistencies in archived data, slight deviations in recorded stellar activity, patterns that no one else had cared enough to examine. They knew. And they came. The first human fleet entered Arkan space without warning. It wasn't large by galactic standards, only a few dozen ships, but their design was unlike anything the Coalition had seen. Angular, layered, bristling with systems that defied easy classification. Arkan defenses activated immediately, weapons locked. Signals transmitted. Identify yourselves. The human fleet did not respond. Instead, they advanced. Panic spread through Arkan. Command: had they provoked something? Had humanity uncovered a grievance, a threat? The Coalition scrambled its fleets, preparing for conflict they did not understand. Then the humans finally transmitted. The message was simple: we have come to repay our debt. No one understood what that meant. Not yet. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Valkyrie Dominion watched with interest. The Valkyrie had always viewed the Arkan Coalition as a rival, less powerful but strategically positioned. Any disruption in Arkan space presented opportunity. When their sensors detected the human fleet's incursion, they did not hesitate. A Valkyrie armada, hundreds of ships, moved toward Arkan territory. Their intent was clear: if the humans were attacking, the Valkyrie would exploit the chaos. If the humans were not, they would ensure that conflict happened anyway. The Valkyrie did not believe in coincidence, they believed in domination. The Arkan Coalition, already on edge, now faced an incoming Valkyrie fleet on one side and an unknown human force on the other. They prepared for annihilation, and still the humans advanced. Commander Thalen, long retired and largely forgotten, was living in quiet obscurity on a fringe world when the message reached her. Humans have entered Arkan space. Her first reaction was confusion. Her second was dread. She accessed the data. She saw the fleet. She saw the trajectory. And then she saw the message: we have come to repay our debt. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, very quietly, she whispered, "No, you shouldn't have remembered." Back in Arkan space, the situation reached its breaking point. The Valkyrie armada arrived first. Their ships formed a blockade, cutting off the human fleet's advance toward the Arkan core worlds. Their commander, High Strategos Karvek, transmitted immediately: human vessels, you have violated sovereign space. Withdraw or be destroyed. The human fleet stopped for several seconds. Nothing happened. Then a single human ship moved forward. It was smaller than the others, but its energy signature spiked as it advanced, systems activating in ways that Valkyrie sensors struggled to interpret. A transmission came through: we are not here for you. Karvek's response was immediate: you are here now. That is sufficient. The Valkyrie opened fire. What happened next was the moment the galaxy began to understand. Valkyrie weapons were devastating. Their energy lances could shear through most known defenses. When they struck the lead human ship, observers expected it to disintegrate. Instead, the impact bent the energy curved around the vessel, redirected by some unseen force, dissipating harmlessly into space. Valkyrie targeting systems recalibrated. They fired again. The same result: confusion spread through the Valkyrie fleet. What kind of shielding was this? The human ship did not fire back. Instead, it continued forward. Another transmission: we are not your enemy. Do not interfere. Karvek did not believe in warnings. He ordered full assault. Hundreds of Valkyrie ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. This time the humans responded, but not with weapons. The space between the fleets shifted, gravity twisted, compressed, redirected. Valkyrie ships found themselves pulled off course, their formations collapsing as invisible forces dragged them into chaotic motion, not destroyed. Not even significantly damaged, just stopped. The entire Valkyrie armada, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, was rendered completely ineffective in seconds, and the humans still had not fired a single weapon. Across the galaxy, observers watched in stunned silence. The humans resumed their advance. The Valkyrie could do nothing to stop them. And for the first time in recorded history, fear spread through every major civilization, because this was not conquest, this was not war, this was something else entirely. The human fleet reached the Arkan core system hours later. Arkan defenses, already overwhelmed by the Valkyrie incursion, stood down. There was no point resisting. The humans could have destroyed them already. Instead, the fleet slowed. One ship detached and moved toward the central orbital station. A single transmission was sent. "We request permission to dock." Arkan leadership hesitated, then, with no real alternative, they granted it. The human vessel docked, the airlock opened, and for the first time in history, a human delegation stepped into the heart of Arkan civilization. They were unimpressive. Physically, they matched what the galaxy already knew: moderate size, no natural weapons, no obvious enhancements, but there was something in their posture, their presence, that unsettled even the most experienced Arkan officials. Confidence, not arrogance, not aggression, certainty. At the center of the delegation was a single individual, an older human, their hair streaked with gray, their expression calm. They introduced themselves simply. "I am Ambassador Elias Ward. We are here to fulfill a promise." Arkan leadership demanded clarification. Ward provided it. "To centuries ago, an Arkan vessel altered the trajectory of a neutron fragment that would have destroyed our world. The individual responsible was Commander Thalen. Your government erased the record, but we found it." He paused. "We never forgot." Silence filled the chamber. Ward continued. "Your act saved our species. Everything we are, everything we have become exists because of that moment." Another pause. "We are here to repay that debt." An Arkan official finally spoke. "Repay it how?" Ward smiled slightly. "By ensuring no one can ever threaten you again." At that exact moment, alarms blared across the station, not from within, from beyond. Sensors detected something impossible. The Valkyrie armada, still trapped in distorted gravitational fields, was not retreating. It was being dismantled, not destroyed, taken apart. Piece by piece, their ships were disassembled at the molecular level, their weapons neutralized, their engines rendered inert, and surrounding them were more human ships, hundreds of them. They had arrived without being detected. The Valkyrie, for the first time in their history, transmitted a message of desperation. "Cease this action. We will withdraw." The human response was immediate. "You initiated hostilities." A pause. "We are concluding them within minutes." The Valkyrie fleet was no longer a threat. It was no longer a fleet at all. Across the galaxy, civilizations watched in horror. If the humans could do this to the Valkyrie, what could they do to anyone? Back in the Arkan chamber, Ward remained calm. "This is not conquest," he said. "We are not here to rule. We are not here to dominate." He looked around the room. "We are here because you helped us when you had no reason to." His voice softened slightly. "Humans, don't forget that." Commander Thalen arrived hours later. She walked into the chamber slowly, her gaze fixed on the human delegation. Ward stepped forward. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ward extended his hand, a human gesture, one the Arkan did not use. "You saved us," he said simply. Thalen looked at him, then at the fleet visible through the station's viewport. "This is too much," she said. Ward shook his head. "No," he replied. "It's not enough outside." The human fleets repositioned, not in attack formations, in defense. A perimeter began to form around Arkan's space, layer upon layer of ships, systems activating, networks linking together into something vast and incomprehensible. A shield, not just around a planet, not just around a system, around an entire civilization. Across the galaxy, the message spread rapidly. Humans had chosen a side, and they had done so not out of strategy or conquest or politics, but out of gratitude, and that made them unpredictable. Dangerous because if this was how they treated their friends, what would they do to their enemies? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Weeks later, a fringe faction within the Scythery Collective, a splinter group that rejected the Collective's central directives, attempted to test the new balance of power. They targeted an Arcan outpost, a minor one, strategically insignificant. They wanted to see how the humans would respond. The attack lasted exactly 12 seconds because on the 13th, the Scythery ships stopped existing. Not destroyed, erased, as if they had never been there at all. The human response was immediate and unmistakable. A galaxy-wide transmission: "We protect those we owe." A pause. "We remember those who threaten them." Another pause. "Choose accordingly." That was the moment fear truly took hold, because this was not a temporary alliance, it was not a strategic maneuver, it was something far more permanent. Humans had decided. And once they decided something, they did not change their minds. Years passed. The galaxy adapted, carefully, cautiously. No one challenged the Arcan coalition again, no one dared. Trade routes shifted, political alliances reformed. Entire civilizations adjusted their behavior around a single, undeniable truth: humanity had become the most powerful force in the galaxy, not because they sought power, but because they chose to use it in ways no one else could predict. They did not expand aggressively, they did not demand tribute, they did not enforce control. They simply watched, and when necessary, they acted, always in repayment, always in memory, always with absolute, overwhelming force. Commander Thalen spent her remaining years in quiet reflection. She often stood at observation decks, watching the human fleet stationed at the edges of Arcan space, silent guardians, unmoving and yielding. One day, she asked Ambassador Ward a question: "Why?" She said, "Why go this far for something so small?" Ward considered the question carefully, then he answered, "Because it wasn't small to us." He looked out at the stars. "You saved everything." A pause. "We're just returning the favor." Thalen nodded slowly. She understood, and for the first time in her long life, she felt something she had not expected: relief, because the galaxy had been wrong about power. It wasn't fleets, it wasn't technology, it wasn't domination. It was memory. It was loyalty. It was the willingness to stand by promise no matter how much time had passed, and in that regard, no one in the galaxy was more powerful than humanity. Far beyond Arcan space, in regions untouched by these events, new civilizations would eventually rise. They would study the history of the galaxy. They would learn about the great powers. The Velkari, the Scythery, the Elgin, and the humans. They would learn about the moment everything changed, the moment when a single act of kindness echoed across centuries and reshaped the balance of the entire galaxy. They would learn the lesson that every advanced civilization eventually came to understand: if you ever help a human, they will never forget, and one day they will come back, not for revenge, not for conquest, but to repay their debt, and when they do, the entire galaxy will feel it.